What is going on, guys? This is Sean from Lineup Logic. Just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up on how you can get involved with Fantasy 5x5, our new NBA DFS analytics partner. So the first thing I wanted to tell you guys is if you know you want to get it, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/lineuplogic. Right here, you can see that there. Of course, you get access to the $10 tools. You get access to Josh's NBA worksheet, which is a nice model to kind of sort through some of the statistics. Josh also does a tutorial on how to use it, which is really cool. And then you can also get the $15 subscription to Fantasy 5x5, which basically gives you two tools for 25% off of each. So you get $5 off of what is normally a $10 subscription to Fantasy 5x5 plus all the premium stuff that we have over here, normally our cheat sheets. So I just wanted to quickly show you guys that you can just upgrade your subscription. If you have a $10 subscription, it's only going to charge you $5 for the rest of the month to get up there. But let's go over to Fantasy 5x5 and walk through some of the great features that I love over here. So the first thing that you got to know is that you have all the basic stats for players and teams that you could really ever want in Fantasy 5x5 right now. So you have, for example, just regular old team stats. Let's go ahead and look, at the Nuggets page. You have player stats like, we can look at Kyle Lowry here, for example. So your player pages and your team pages are phenomenal. You have their last 5 games. You have live stats according to the slate. My computer's going a little bit slow. You have on-off tools here. So this is a really, really easy way to read on-off rather than using something like RotoGrinders Quarter IQ. This is just a visualization of on-off, right? And so you see Kyle Lowry is off. When he's off, obviously the biggest bumps go to some of these front court players, CJ Miles, right? When he's on the court, we see some bumps to guys, Pascal Siakam, things like that. And normal production for players like Serge Ibaka, DeMar DeRozan. And you have things interesting here. This is one of the most unique player tools that they have is the assist buddies and the correlation. So you have teammate stackability. If you're interested in game stacking, this I think is a really, really interesting way to correlate players and get unique in your game stacking abilities. That's something unique that these player pages offer. Then you have the game log tool. Of course, the great thing here is you can see what these guys did in their last 5. We have averages for their last 5 here, 47 in his last 5, 44 in his last 5 on DraftKings. Of course, if you're a Yahoo player as well. And then you have the standard counting stats, what he's been doing throughout those. And you have the minutes charts, of course. And you have that game log all the way through the beginning of the year, which is really, really great. So the player pages are really easy to use. The team page is very similar. You have the point guard. You have everybody listed at their various positions. You have all the different positions, guys, the way that different schemes could be set up on a different team. We know that Wilson Chandler sometimes plays the 4, that kind of thing. And then, of course, you have the bench players. So you can kind of start to see how the rotations work over here. And that's really useful to kind of get a sense, and you can break down, exactly what you see. Different things. You see their DVP and things like that, some different fantasy points allowed. Now let's go back to the home page here and look at some of the more interesting tools. First off, you have the Vegas and Dvp Boost. Chris takes combination of average points that a team is allowed and sees how that compares to how many points they've scored. So, for example, the Suns tonight against the Raptors, they're projecting them 2.8 points below their average scoring, which is a problem, okay? And the Raptors are projected above 7.3 points above their average scoring number here, which is a good thing for them. And you see these boosts based on position, how many points they allow to the shooting guard, they allow to the point guard, things like that. So obviously these little boosts, you start to get a sense of player by player who is in a good position. So it's a nice, quick, easy way. Of course, you have the news updates. You have the injury dashboard. The injury dashboard is a really, really useful tool. Doubtful, questionable, all that kind of stuff. It's right there for you. But the best part about the injury boost is the injury tool is the injury boost tool. When we know that a guy is out, we're going to be able to tell how easily and how quickly it correlates with fantasy value for other players. So, for example, here's a good one to read. Alec Burks without Rodney Hood. We have a 5-game sample size, and in that 5-game sample size, we noticed that Burks has averaged 26 fantasy points, which is plus 13 above his season average in that 5-game sample size without Rodney Hood. Quick reference to figure out what's going on. We see the same thing with Thomas Satoransky, that kind of thing. So it's very, very useful for us to be able to quickly and easily understand how injuries are going to affect the slate, and get a good high-level understanding of what you should be paying attention to there. Now, that's not the only boost that you have, okay? The other boosts that you have are related to other player splits. The boost tools are so useful. Back-to-back. How much does a back-to-back hurt a player in fantasy production? Home road. How have guys performed versus at home on the road? It makes sense that you see Russell Westbrook performing better at home from a fantasy perspective. Devin Booker better on the road. DeMar DeRozan better at home. You see, these kinds of things are very useful. And the rematch boost tool is one of my favorites. If these teams have played before in the year, it shows you what their normal projection is, but then it shows you how they performed last time against this team. We know that the Wizards and the Blazers already played once this year, and you can see Bradley Beal went off against them last time out. So maybe a good spot to go to back to Bradley Beal. We know he's going to be high usage situation, that kind of thing. Definitely an interesting tool as well. Very unique, quick, easy way. Now, my favorite tool. Why is it my favorite tool? Well, my favorite tool because Chris and I talked about how cool it would be able to figure out this DVP Deep Dive. Now, normally you just have regular DVP chart here. It tells you where you want to attack certain teams. We know we want to attack Atlanta at the point guard, Brooklyn at the point guard, Brooklyn at the center, that kind of thing. Great, fine. But as we start to understand things like player rotations and missing players and injuries and stuff like that, the DVP Deep Dive gives you a sense of what has been happening in that span. So let's say, for example, we wanted to figure out how have starting point guards against the Washington Wizards fared since John Wall went down. Now, John Wall has been out at least 5 games. Let's figure out how that's been going for them, okay? And we see some ridiculous performances, right? We know that Tyus Jones and Ben Simmons both went off against these guys. John Wall was out in that game. Reggie Jackson, that was a total blowout. Last night, Rubio was a total blowout. In general, though, we see that they're allowing way above average production without Wall on the court. I think this is a really, really interesting tool to try and get context around how teams are actually doing and which types of players are actually performing well against other teams. So, for example, one of the things that I like to research, starting shooting guard against Charlotte. This was a trend that was profitable earlier in the year, and then Nick Batum came back. And I wanted to see how Nick Batum was affecting things. And sure enough, as Nick Batum came back in these last couple games, as of last week, he came back in that that Cleveland game, I believe. You see the numbers start to go a little bit south. A couple below average performances from a couple, mediocre shooting guards. DeMar DeRozan had a nice game at home, but you can see the performances aren't nearly what they were earlier in the year when we were really attacking Charlotte at the 2. Rather, we start to see, a trend that maybe Nick Batum is helping this shooting guard defense head in the right direction. So this is a really, really useful tool. I think it's a really, really great thing. The whole website is awesome. Of course, you can get it for just $5 by signing up with Lineup Logic. Of course, there, boom, you also have the Lineup Logic player right there built into the site, which is awesome. So get over here to patreon.com/lineuplogic and sign up for this $15 Lineup Logic Fantasy 5x5 premium tool.